And we are live. This is Mac Bolin, and this is my first podcast under the seriously, folks. And tonight we're going to talk Florida mass shooting, and we're going to talk a little bit about gun control and some other issues that I think kind of contributed to what we're experiencing now. Give a quick preface. I spent 24 years in the military. 22 active duty, 2 years reserve. Most of it was in special forces, special operations. I'm a member of the NRA, the Illinois State Rifle Association, United States Practical Shooting Association. I've been a former 3-gun competitor, been around firearms my entire life, and I'll even go all the way back. First, I want to introduce my hosts here, my guests here. Mike Blackgrave, you first. Go ahead. Tell us about yourself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Mike Blackgrave, 54 years young from San Antonio, Texas. Like Emerson, a U.S. Army veteran. Although I wasn't Special Forces, I did a grand total of 6. I was in ComSec security with the Pershing nuclear units back in the Cold War days. Did a lot of that type of work, security on missiles, mating missiles, top secret materials, making sure they got to QRA sites where they were supposed to go at the right times. I've been around guns my whole life. I grew up with them. My father was 101st Airborne Recondo. So we always learned how to shoot, learned how to hunt, learned how to fish, did all those things. And as time grew on, I just, went in the service myself. And I'm a longtime martial artist, been training martial arts 38 years. And I've been a gun instructor for several years, been through all the NRA programs, NRA life member. I've trained with Navy SEALs. I've trained with Green Berets. I've trained with Rangers, Spetsnaz. I just love to train. So, I'm 100% a gun guy, and I like the practical and the tactical of the usage of it. So, yeah, that's about it for me.
All right, and Michael Wayne Johnson, go ahead.
How you doing? I'm Michael Johnson. I'm 22 years old. I go to Duke University. I'm a wrestler, national level wrestler. I've been on Team USA. I grew up around firearms. Both my parents hunted, more on the archery side, but my grandfather had a pretty impressive arsenal of firearms. It was great growing up around him, hunting and shooting as a family. I'm a political science major. Firearms has been a huge part of my life. It's one of my most important issues to me, and that's pretty much it.
And a very accomplished wrestler, I might add. For the people in the wrestling community, you pretty much know who you are, particularly here in Illinois and Pennsylvania. And you are in Pennsylvania now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start off and just say, the Florida mass shooting occurred, and we had the typical knee-jerk reaction from the emotional left that, the anti-gun and gun control people, the people who are against the Second Amendment, very typical, immediately politicize a tragedy. And the interesting thing, though, is the timing on this, which was particularly brutal, because we all know what's coming up. In 2018 here shortly, we have midterm elections coming up, and that had a huge impact here in Illinois, and it's going to have a huge impact across the country. So it'll be interesting to see the fallout. 2 things right away that really bother me about this, and a lot of these mass shootings, and I have friends who are policemen, and they say, well, why are all these details being released immediately before an investigation is even closed?
Well, I look at it this way. When you found out who was in charge of that police department down there, and you see all the pictures of who he's with, the agenda that he spews out, even before this happened, it kind of, to me, when I started seeing all the details come out, it was a really easy thing to see. This guy's leaking them himself, and I have zero doubt about that. Because, he's got an agenda and he's got a will for higher office, which is obvious. And just his mannerisms on how he was answering questions throughout this whole situation, it points to an inside job on who's leaking this information out? I mean, it was obvious as rain that this was going to happen, you know. And I'm not saying anything that the guy doesn't care or anything like that, but you could definitely see he has an agenda that is pretty big.
Right. And Mike Johnson, now you saw
Yeah.
this right away. What was your first gut instinct?
To the shooting or the sheriff?
To the shooting, and then what you felt was going to happen right afterwards.
As soon as, well, there was the first notification I got was on my phone. Fox News notification came up that there was a shooting. But a week or two earlier, there was that shooting where the gun was dropped in the school, and that was also a notification. So my first reaction was this was just another kind of like small isolated incident. It wasn't going to be this huge media storm that it became. And then my first indication that it was something a lot bigger was when actually I first saw the sheriff take a press conference. And my first reaction was this guy was just a politician. I mean, it sounded like this guy was running a political campaign.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was running a political campaign off of this tragedy. And it was almost like on cue, this reporter asked him this question. I remember it because it just disgusted me hearing this. Is he asked this reporter a question, which he knew the question probably was coming from this agency. They said, what is his opinion on assault weapons? And this is before an assault weapon was even talked about.
Right.
And no details of this shooting came out. And he goes, there'll be a lot of time for that conversation later. And just the way he said it, it came off as, you know, I immediately knew he was going to make a political stance out of this. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about the tragedy that just happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the families or reuniting kids with their families. It wasn't about the parents that were driving around in trucks with pictures of their kids looking for their kids. It was about a press conference and getting his... It was like a guy announcing his candidacy for president almost. He was out there insinuating a political message before any news even got out about the casualties, the injuries, the weapon used. It was very political from day one. I mean, hour one.
His agenda was on full display right away. What was it the next night he said on TV? A lion doesn't listen to the opinions of sheep. And he kept on spewing about what a great job that he had done, and everything was he. Nobody else involved. It was all about him.
And you talked about in your opening about how politicians talking about, you know, going crazy and an agenda before any info was out. This is the guy that had a CNN town hall,
right,
and attacked the NRA, knowing his officers didn't go in the school.
Right.
So if anyone wants to argue that he's a political hack more than he is a sheriff, look at his CNN town hall where he knew that 4 officers didn't go in that school to save those kids. And he's vilifying the NRA in front of millions of people on CNN Live.
And what's even worse is the way that when the children who were there were talking, you know, to Miss Loach, I believe her name is, and how all the questions were just baited for them.
Absolutely.
Just baited. And I kept watching this and I was like, you know, I'm 54 years old. I'm not going to sit there and really take the opinion of a 14 or 15-year-old too seriously.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, what was it? The old joke just last week, they were eating Tide Pods, and now we're supposed to listen to them on gun control?
Right, exactly.
And now this week, they're saying 18-year-olds aren't old enough to own firearms. So what's a 14-year-old's opinion matter on the conversation?
Exactly.
Right. Well, and they're talking about raising it to 21. You know what I would say? Hey, okay, let's raise the voting age to 21.
Yes.
And let's see how you like that.
Yes, because then they don't get any of those liberal college votes in swing states.
Nope.
And even so, if you know, I'm a firm believer that if I can go and fight for my country the way I did at the age of 18,
mm-hmm.
I should have the right to go out and buy me a firearm at the age of 18. And I'm still a firm believer I should be able to go buy a beer at 18.
Absolutely. And they raised the national drinking age to 21.
So,
you know,
you're an illegal adult at 18. If you're an illegal adult at 18, you don't get to pick and choose what rights a legal adult has.
Hell, if I can do life in prison at 18, I should be able to buy a firearm.
They're charging 14-year-olds as an adult. So what is the line for you are a legal adult in the United States?
It's a huge it's a huge gray area right now. But that's one of the issues that's totally even being avoided in this.
Yeah.
You know, we look at what happened and go back to Las Vegas, and every time you get the same mantra over and over and again. And one of my biggest issues, because I unfortunately live here in the land of, I'm in Illinois, so I'm stuck in Crook County. Yeah, where literally Democrats have run a state into the ground. And the interesting thing, and I want to talk just a little bit here.
Before you get off Vegas, how is it we know more about Florida than we do about Vegas?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole Vegas thing is stinks to high heaven.
Yep. And there's been a lot of talks about both of them.
Exactly.
I mean, anyone that is into firearms knows that bump stocks are like a novelty item.
Yeah. Right. And they reduce the accuracy of a firearm.
Right. And you can bump fire more efficiently and accurately from the hip or the shoulder with a standard rifle.
Exactly. I can teach you how to bump fire, you can bump fire a lever gun damn near,
Right.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. And, if you want to, and I don't care about bump stocks. I would never own one. But, are they going to ban my educated trigger finger because I can really fire accurately at a high rate of fire because I spent all those years training to fire a firearm accurately? And that includes when I carried an actual assault rifle, which is not an AR-15 semi-automatic. I carried an actual assault rifle in the military, first a CAR-15 and then later an M4, and I could fire accurately 2-round double taps on automatic.
Yeah,
because that's what I was trained on.
Emerson, I heard a guy down here the other day, and you're going to laugh at this. They were talking about gun control, and a guy was talking about the reset. We all know what the reset is on a firearm, and that's how you really learn how to shoot accurately and how you put your double taps and things. And the guy actually said, maybe we need to look into banning reset triggers.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. Exactly.
That's the insanity. No bounds.
That's the insanity that we deal with, and this is something I want to really get into here in a minute. Because every time, go ahead, Mike.
The fact that no one on either side of the aisle knows what they're talking about when it comes to firearms.
Nothing.
Exactly. And most of them don't even know which proper shotgun round to use in a self-defense situation, because I hear people saying number 8 bird shot, and I look at huh?
I've had people say that at the ranges that you're going to have close quarters in a home, you're not even getting the spread that people think that you're getting.
No.
You might as well almost be firing slugs.
What I run in my shotgun here for the house is 4-buck.
Okay.
Well, the only problem with slugs is, and here's an interesting thing, and I love to share this because I've done extensive work with firearms and ballistics. When a number 8 shot and a slug leaves the barrel, because it's all based on weight, they both have the same amount of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The problem is, within a few feet, a number 8 shot spreads so fast, it reduces the actual energy of impact greatly versus a slug. Now, slugs are brutal. And for people who have no idea what I'm talking about, let me tell you something. You shoot a person, even wearing body armor, with a rifled slug, and I guarantee you they may live, but they are going to go down and they're going to get up with probably a few broken ribs and a lot of blunt trauma. And I don't care if they're wearing a level 3, plate in front of that body armor, because of the amount of energy that's expended by a rifled slug, particularly at a closer range. Now, me personally,
your heart could stop.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It will mess you up. And that's why, like I carry, I use double-aught buck. I have rifled slugs, but
Yeah.
for home defense, me personally, opinion, double-aught buckshot, by far the best.
Right.
And I'll tell you something that'll really crack you up. We shot a mannequin at 10 yards with number 8 shot and wearing basically 3 layers of clothing, outer laying, a heavy cotton jacket. And it barely penetrated and made bruises and, barely penetrated the inside of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, you got to really pay attention to ballistics and studies that are already out there when you make decisions on buying guns. And I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but that's just one of those things that I look at.
Now with some of the new variants with other weapons, either you can get a more manageable shotgun with a shorter barrel length that's a lot more suited than your 18.5-inch, Black Eagle hunting gun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact.
Yeah, and the thing is, when we go back to the mass shootings, and right away, the first thing I always like to center on is the evil gun, the black rifle, the AR-15, and they want to call it an assault rifle or assault weapon. And any person who's educated on firearms, one knows an AR-15 civilian model is a semi-automatic rifle. It's not an assault rifle. It's not an assault weapon. And those of us who were in the military, who actually had the opportunity to carry an actual assault rifle, dear liberals, every time you start spouting that bullshit, you lose all your credibility because you have no clue what you're talking about. When you call an AR-15 a high-powered rifle.
Oh, I was going to say
it's a varmint round, for crying out loud. If you talk about hunting, a 223 is a varmint round.
It's banned from most game.
Right, well, exactly, because if you go ahead.
When they were talking about, if it was this type of a rifle or if it was just a pistol, this could have been the damage here, this could have been the damage there.
Yeah.
And people are saying, well, if guns were illegal, what could really be the whole, the whole damage thing? And a buddy of mine who's a former Spetsnaz on his podcast came out and he said something really poignant. He said, let a crazy son of a bitch go into a room with an aluminum baseball bat with 20 kids. How many kids do you think are going to come out of that room? That's, it's some crazy son of a bitch with a blade, a gun, a bat.
Not even a bat with nails in it.
Yeah. And I guarantee you 20 kids are going to lose. I mean, look what happened with the knife attack over China. That guy killed all those people with those kids with the blade.
Yeah.
So it's not the it's not the tool. It's the crazy son of a bitch who decides to pick it up one day and just go nuts.
The assault rifle thing doesn't even bother me anymore because I understand that that's Democrat propaganda.
Absolutely.
And that's all it is. But the thing is that when you start talking about the specifics of the rifle and people start talking about how it's a high-powered rifle cartridge.
Which it isn't.
And, my mom's in the medical field and we're watching these doctors, and CNN got a doctor and pathology to come on. Not even like a real doctor. I mean, they're a doctor by education, but how they're talking about how the AR-15 inflicted such wounds because of the velocity. And my mom in the medical profession is just laughing at them and saying, how'd they get this person? Because, they're a 308 is around the same speed as a 223, and that will shred you apart.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're talking about rifle rounds. A 50 cal goes around the same speed. You want to get hit with M2 ball or, 55 grain.
Right.
So,
and that's a point that a lot of times that gets overlooked, and we deal, particularly here in Illinois, we deal with this BS all the time because we're in a Democratic Party controlled state, and just how insane it is. Of course, we all know when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Heller in D.C. versus Heller, and they got rid of all the handgun bans, and all the liberals cried and spoke bloody murder, and none of what they predicted happened. And then we look at when McDonald
v. Chicago.
When McDonald won versus the city of Chicago, and concealed carry became a reality. None of what they thought would happen happened. And I find it interesting because the city of Chicago itself, you know, and people can talk, you know, gun violence rates per 100,000 and say, yeah, in the South, more people commit suicide or blah, 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 blah. The bottom line is none of the policies that the Democrats have instituted have been effective at all because they won't deal with the root causes. And the city of Chicago, what was hilarious, instituted zoning regulations that literally prohibited any firearm dealer or gun range to exist in the city of Chicago.
What was it? Schools, banks, what?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was ludicrous. So they,
Public
you know,
parks,
it was within distances that were just
store.
absurd. And then when they had a record year of violence last year, they started blaming collar counties, the suburbs, for their gun violence, and the city of Indiana or the state of Indiana. And it's hilarious because at the same time they're talking about illegal guns. You have a woman who is convicted of 4 straw purchases that were sold to gang members who committed crimes, and she got no jail time, 10 months
right
probation.
Back out there doing it.
10 months probation for a woman who committed literally the same type of crime they're trying to prevent. So, you know what? Shut the fuck up, enforce your laws, and don't dump on the rest of us who aren't contributing to your problems.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they're never going to do that. We all know that they're never going to do that because it doesn't fit their agenda. Maybe I'm a nutty guy, but you know, I see all this is all tied together with all the other crap, with the illegal immigration, with the immigration for votes, things like that, with the gangs. I see this all as just one big old happy mishmash family for the left. For some odd reason, they want this country to turn that way, and socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it. My mom, who escaped DDR, will tell you flat out, I have seen all this before. I have heard all these words before in my own country when she lived in East Germany as a kid. And she says she cannot believe what she's seeing in this country today. She said it scares the hell out of her because it reminds her very much of East Germany when she was a young girl.
That's crazy.
Same type of stuff.
Yeah, and that's a sad fact because if you've ever been into socialist countries, I've been all over the world.
I lived in DDR for almost 6 months with her, and I saw it firsthand.
And what cracks me up is when they try to compare the United States to some of these other countries, because we have a First Amendment and a Second Amendment, and a Second Amendment that guarantees a First Amendment. And make no mistake, unless you're a total fool, the far progressive left, and I'm not going to dump on all liberals, and I'm not going to dump on all Democrats. Hell, if the Democratic Party would have nominated Jim Webb from South Carolina, I'd have voted for him. But when you try and compare us to these other countries that still have kings and queens like Sweden, Norway, England, etc., to the United States, which never had a king or queen once we became independent, and you can dump on history as far as Native Americans, etc., and go have your pity party somewhere. But the bottom line is this country gave people freedoms that people in Europe don't have. That people in Europe don't own houses, cars.
Right.
I've been to these countries and I've seen the taxes that they pay that make me laugh. And they say, "Oh, but look, they don't have guns. They have this and that, and they have that." Well, you know what?
51% income tax in West Germany. 51%. I have family over there who we talked to, and how the hell do you live off 51% income tax?
And you can't.
You can't. In Sweden, Norway, you're talking about anywhere from 45 to 65% income tax.
All these
and people who own nothing.
Yeah. All these people that want to compare us to these other countries point out the very reasons why they're saying, oh, they have this, this is this way in Australia, this is this way in Japan. And it's hard to argue with someone that is pointing out things that are the very reason why America was founded and the Constitution was written the way it was. There's a very Federalist I don't remember which Federalist exactly, but there's a really good Jefferson quote about government freedoms. America is privileged because it trusts its citizens with firearms. And the time that you must worry about government tyranny the most is when they stop trusting the citizens with firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the great irony in this is, if you look at the cities specifically that have the absolute worst crimes, they're all run by Democrats. If you look at Chicago, you look at Baltimore, you look at New York, Oakland, St. Louis, Atlanta, I mean, you go on, and their strict rules, etc., their policies have failed. Detroit, to mention another one, have failed completely.
DC.
Yeah, DC, another example. And it's Oakland, hilarious. LA. Because they try and blame everything but themselves for their failures. Mm-hmm. And they won't deal with the root causes that are the poverty, that is the unemployment, the broken school systems, the high cost of living. In California, if you want to paint a picture, if you want to put a poster child up for failure of democratic policies in America, look at California.
Oh, my goodness.
It is a train wreck.
And it's and the divisiveness in this country. Look what's going on with the divisiveness in this country. It's if you're Christian, you're wrong. If you're white, you're wrong. Everybody in this country, especially from the left that I've experienced as of late, and I'm meaning late as the last 8 to 9 years, they're always trying to tell people how to be right. What's right? What's right? What's right for you? What's right for him? But have you ever noticed none of these son of a bitches know what real is? They just don't. They all try to tell you what's the best for you, what's right for you, how this is supposed to be. But when you come down to brass tacks, that divisiveness is, that's a seeded root that was brought with the Obama administration. I'm 54. I've never seen nothing this divided in my whole life in this country.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, and the other thing from the Democratic Party that just drives me insane is they try to be, the knights in shining armor for the underprivileged minorities, and they're out there saying deplorables to half of the country, and you're racist if you voted for Trump, but yet there's 50-something deaths per month in Chicago, gun deaths. Around 14.5 per week if you take 2016's numbers and divide it down. That's a Vegas massacre a month or a Florida shooting a week. Why isn't that on the news?
Because
Dana Lash had a very good comment at CPAC. And it's white mothers get good ratings, and no one cares about the black mothers and their babies because it doesn't bring in the money.
Mm-hmm. Well, Democratic Party has never been a friend to the minority, even though they push it, never have. I've never understood why anybody could vote.
Clinton, mass incarceration.
I could do an entire podcast alone on the Democratic Party and, how the ghetto is the new plantation. But that's a totally different subject. But it all leads to what we're talking about. Now, what I really find ironic when I hear people talk about AR-15s and why does anyone need an AR-15 and high-capacity magazines, and you know what? I'll spell it out to you. 1992, Watts riots. Half of the Korean neighborhood got destroyed by rioters that were specifically targeting them, and They defended their neighborhood, going on rooftops, putting cars in front of their businesses like a war zone. Was the LAPD there to help them?
Nope.
No, they couldn't. And look, recently in the Chicago Tribune, we have another jackass reporter. What passes for a journalist anyway. Darlene Glanton, along with guys like Rex Hupke, who's another dumbass, and Eric Zorn. But Darlene Glanton literally attacked a guy from Oswego who pulled an AR-15 and stopped one neighbor with a knife from attacking another neighbor.
Yep.
And she literally said that he was wrong and he shouldn't have acted like a policeman and he should have called 911. Well, you know what, Darlene, dumbass? If you did any research, the average 911 response time in the U.S. is from 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And if this guy was acting like a cop, if he hadn't acted like a cop, we might have had a fatal stabbing. So you know what?
A whole lot of stabbing to be done in 12 minutes.
Exactly. And as we know, most of the homicides in this country aren't even committed by firearms. And if you look at firearm deaths, which I believe last year were around 15,000, you eliminate 2/3, which were suicides, accidental, negligence, etc.
Nothing against police officers, because they have some of the hardest job in the whole country.
Absolutely. I'm just speaking reality.
At 12 minutes, if they decide to come in, because the Supreme Court said that their oath doesn't include bodily harm and and responding to a call.
Right.
Yeah. And the Supreme Court said they have no
constitutional obligation
to protect.
No. And this is why I say, people get a clue. Again, you've got to be prepared to defend yourself, your family, and in your business and your property.
All I've been hearing recently from the left is let the government do its job. Let the government protect you. You don't need to be a hero. You don't need to be a police officer. But, the FBI's 3 tips, the 40+ visits, the felonies he could have been arrested for. But besides all that, when a police officer comes to your home and doesn't even have an obligation to come in, who's there to protect you?
Exactly.
After 12 minutes.
Yet, at the same time, in Illinois, they want to pass a law which would allow police to come in and search, and they want to say that if you have body armor or you have high-capacity magazines, they want confiscation. They want,
so
a
my
police
school's a gun-free zone. Are they going to confiscate my plate that's in my backpack instead in the laptop compartment because they've disarmed me?
It's insanity.
They want to take everything, my friends. They want to take everything, and even here in Texas, Texas, which has great gun laws, great knife laws. I mean, we're now looked upon here in Texas as villains because we're allowed to carry a Bowie knife.
Which is
campus carry.
Right.
People have died because of campus carry.
And I carry a Bowie knife almost everywhere I go. So
and they'd hate my Gerber Mark II. But I can't carry it legally here in Illinois, on my belt. But it's a great knife.
Yeah. So everything down here. I mean, now you're starting to see it in our local politics. I was talking to Emerson earlier. They're trying to bring sanctuary cities here. They're trying to do this in San Antonio, Texas. Last night, the DA lost to this guy named Gonzalez. Who, when rubbing 2 nickels together, couldn't even raise $13,000 for his campaign. But George Soros pumped in $1 million to our local DA race to get this guy who comes right out on TV and says, "I want sanctuary cities. I want gun control. No magazines over 10 rounds." So with his whole summation, he's talking Ruger 10/22s, everything, and he comes right out and says it. And he put $1 million.
That's scary.
It's amazing.
Well, the thing is, Texas is a target. I mean, you heard the Democrats say they want to turn Texas blue. They want to turn Texas blue. They want Texas to become a Democratic Party state. And it's scary because, again, it all boils down to politics. And it's
you know what's scarier is you can see how they're going to do it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Look at Illinois' what is it, their library card? You can vote if you're an illegal now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what they're going to do. Open borders, flood our country in key states. They want illegal immigrants on the census. That would already swing the balance towards California.
Absolutely.
Some
Absolutely. Well,
Colorado.
and if you look at the wreck that California already is, it's pathetic.
Down here in Texas, we are we have so many illegals. It's unbelievable. A good friend of mine who is a border patrol in McAllen, and I've been down there recently teaching. I couldn't believe how demilitarized it is. How it's maddening. And he's flat told me we have people that they say, yeah, just let them come through. That they're good. They're good to come on. They're good to come in. And he said, we're checking them and everything. And all of a sudden we get an order, a directive from up above. No, this group can come in. And there they go. Wow. Off.
Yeah,
amazing.
Well, if you look at the problem with the gang violence in states like California and the fact that nobody can do anything about it, it's because of the stupid laws that protect them.
Yeah.
MS-13 would never have become the violent force they are in this country right now if it wasn't for immigration laws. And you're talking about a group that came in originally as refugees from El Salvador and then eventually turned into one of the most violent gangs in the country, about 20,000 strong, and they're in 50 states in the nation now.
Yeah, they're right here in my city. You see them all the time.
No, I know. It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing that people don't understand is, I forget if it was Comey or Clapper, one of those guys testifying. Mm-hmm. We have open ISIS investigations, and this is just ISIS in all 50 states.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys, they know who they are.
Well, yeah.
But they won't touch them.
Well, if you really investigate that, having been down there and having friends who work Border Patrol, and he flat tells me, we find prayer rugs in the middle of, on our side of the line when we're doing searches. We find prayer rugs from Muslims who are praying. There's been cases where people from Hamas are in Mexico teaching cartels how to do what, how to make their roadside bombs for cash to fund their own stuff back in their own world. Learning Spanish, filtering in across the border. It's all
interconnected. And that's why people that say going after MS-13 and gangs like that in our country isn't as effective as going after other things, like they're talking cybersecurity and ISIS and things like that. But it's all connected. They all feed off of each other. They all help each other. They have the same goal. It's to make money off of us or to hurt us.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, but hey, worry about the Russians.
Yeah.
God forbid, we have Russian meddling in elections.
or if you're the last administration, ignore Russian meddling for 2 years and sell guns to ISIS.
Yeah. Well, I could speak volumes on the Libya connection.
Let's talk about, if you want to go down that route, how do you get an attorney general who at one time in his life held up at gunpoint a recruiting station?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's me or you, Emerson, they're going to put us so far back in the jail.
Oh, hell yeah.
Pea shooter.
Yeah.
Put you as an enemy combatant, you'd be gone.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when I hear people talk about, AR-15s, high-capacity magazines, who needs them? Why do we have to have them? Oh, blah, blah, blah. And, we already covered they're not high-powered rifles. They're not, for hunting, they're varmint rounds. But I say this again, okay? I mentioned Watts. Look at Ferguson, Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the guys who stood guard in front of their businesses and were wearing body armor, which they also want to ban. We're carrying not just shotguns, but AR-15s, 30-round magazines, protecting their businesses. And the rioters didn't touch them, but went on to demolish everything right next to them.
Yeah.
If you live in a city like Baltimore and you have a jackass mayor that decides, oh, well, you know what, police, stand down, let the rioters vent, give them their space so they can destroy a whole neighborhood. Who are you going to count on?
Exactly.
I mean,
and to go
seriously.
down an even darker road, and it's further back now than it was when I was younger, but you know, Executive Order 9066 was never declared unconstitutional, where they rounded up all the Japanese and put them in internment camps,
Right.
and stripped them of all their wealth, all their property, all their rights with a stroke of a pen by the president. Never was unconstitutional. To this day, a president could draw his pen across a piece of paper and strip anyone of rights, and it would be legal the moment he signed it.
Well, if you look at the executive orders that Obama produced, that, let's face it, sanctuary cities, that's unconstitutional. You're asking local law enforcement to basically disobey federal law. Yet, when Obama stocked all those, lower court judges, hey, they're upholding all his executive orders. We saw massive overreaches by the government while Obama was in office. And unfortunately, because of a lot of those court appointees and circuit courts and appellate courts, they can't do anything about it. And that's a big problem right now. That's a huge problem.
And it's still going on. Look what's going on in California with the orders from different mayors and stuff to tell all the people that ICE is coming, jeopardizing the safety life of these ICE agents. That falls only on one person. That agenda started with the Obama administration.
Yeah.
Now you have these idiots out there saying, no, we're not going to allow ICE, and let's tell everybody that they're coming and jeopardize their lives. Which I mean,
basically breaking the law.
Exactly. Well, I mean, these people. What pisses me off is you hear all these damn leftists talking about, well, a lot of these immigrants, they're not criminals, they're not this, they're not that, and I always tell them, what is there about the word illegal that you don't understand? Just by being here, you're a criminal. You're breaking the law just by being here.
Well, something you will never hear is that illegal immigrants commit crime at a higher rate than actual citizens. And you won't hear that. They'll never print that statistic, but it's a fact.
And they're also great shots because they know how to curve a bullet off of a bench and into a brick wall and off a tree.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. No, it's a sad state.
They're bending bullets and
it's ridiculous.
But the biggest threat to this right now and immediately, away from guns and more on the federal law and the sanctuary cities and immigration. The biggest threat right now is Attorney General Sessions needs to get going on his department on lawsuits, sanctions, going after these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states that are blatantly defying federal law.
Absolutely. And actually, the DOJ has filed a suit against California.
For these new laws. But they're not going after them for sanctuary cities. They're not going after them for not cooperating. They're being very soft. And
they actually filed a suit. No, the DOJ filed a lawsuit against California over sanctuary cities. That just happened.
Just now? I thought it was over their new laws that they just passed.
Just happened. Nope, they're going after California for the sanctuary cities. Or state, I should say sanctuary state.
If they don't create the rule of, Trump campaigned on it, the rule of law. We're bringing the rule of law back. If they don't bring back the rule of law and don't bring back that federal law reigns supreme, how are you going to defend the Bill of Rights and bringing it back to firearms when you can't even enforce basic immigration law? How are you going to enforce federal rights to these states?
Yeah, never going to happen. And I always use that argument when people say, oh, we need restrictions or bans, blah, 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 blah. You know what? You have so many guns in this country, and if you restrict legal firearm owners from this or that, it's not going to have any effect on criminals.
None. Question: ask one of these people sometimes. I've done it.
Yeah.
What is your approach to disarming the ones who shouldn't have the guns, the criminals, the drug. What is your plan for that? And you know what you usually get? Well, that's not the problem.
It is the problem, though.
But me and you, the guy, my guns are sitting right back here. I mean, I got a Glock sitting right here that hasn't hurt a damn soul, sitting right here.
Right.
You know, but yet we are the problem. And these guys, you know, MS-13 who can get anything they want, for some odd reason, they're not the problem. And they don't need to be disarmed, according to people I talk to who are leftists, because they don't have an answer on how to do it.
They don't. And with the amount of money that is involved in the drug trafficking and the particular cities that are already the feeding grounds for gangs, because they have broken education, they have poverty, they have all the problems, but they refuse to deal with the root problems. They would prefer to just point the finger and say, oh, no, it's guns. Oh, no, and this is what we're doing for it. Yeah, we did this. We did that. Yeah, this is going to help. Well, no, it's not. It's not helping at all.
And the big elephant in the room being big pharma, that's not a problem. That's, you know, that's not a problem at all. Let's just keep giving kids all this psychotic drugs and, you know, see what happens 5 years from now. They'll be fine. Nobody wants to address that elephant in the room either.
Too much money.
What's
They're
that?
like the second or third biggest. They're the second or third biggest lobbyist.
Yeah.
In the whole country. So, and the other thing is what gun people don't know is in '94, I'm surprised how few gun people know this. In '94, when the assault weapon ban happened, we didn't have Heller, we didn't have McDonald v. Chicago, and a case that many people don't know about now is, I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Cantano versus Massachusetts in 2016. It was about a taser. Not necessarily, it wasn't about a firearm, it was about a taser. But they ruled that technology that didn't exist when the Bill of Rights was made applies to the Second Amendment. So a lot of these states' assault weapons bans that talk about advanced technology and banning semi-automatic firearms, and they talk about technology, I'm just waiting for one of these states to get challenged because of the 2016 Supreme Court ruling. And no one really knows about that ruling applying modern technology. And if you apply the 2016 Massachusetts case with technology doesn't change the right, and you apply Heller v. DC and Chicago, where it says a weapon with a self-defense purpose, it's pretty much constitutionally impossible to ban assault weapons.
Yeah, well, and I even hate that term, you know, when they say assault weapons and assault rifle, because we know.
Common language.
Yeah, no, and I totally understand what you're saying. And that's one of the things that cracks me up. And I keep telling you, you know, liberal anti-gun folks, you have no idea how stupid you sound when you make your comments about magazines, about
30-round clips. Always get a 30-round clip.
Oh, yeah, clip versus a magazine, and they don't know the difference between a clip and a magazine.
And the bullet button, you got to have a bullet button.
Well, right, in California, you know, you got to have a tool to operate that because you can't have a detachable magazine. And you go on and on and on, and the total ignorance just makes your head hurt.
Yeah, and both of you were military, and you know.
Yeah.
When you're a trained firearms operator.
Yeah.
The split times between a reload almost don't matter. I mean, you're reloading before the gun's empty. Most people don't know that. When you reload at opportunity, not when the gun runs dry.
Yeah.
Well, or even if a bolt goes dry, even if the bolt comes back, the time it takes me, for instance, because I'm trained, to go from a bolt going back to putting a magazine in is a couple of seconds, if that.
Yeah, exactly.
If that.
Yeah.
So
you should be able to knock that out. You should be able to strip that, put that back in less than 4 seconds, and you're back in the fight.
I'm about a second and a half.
That's because you're Mac Bolan, man.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying, you know,
if you look at 2 30-round mags versus 6 10-rounders, your finger's getting tired with the semi-auto. The split times are so almost not even, it's not a factor at that point.
And to bring something up, the Florida shooter did not use high capacity magazines.
Yeah, 10-round magazines.
He had 10-round magazines.
So here's my other point: is all these politicians want to make political statements and solutions before they find out any facts about the shooting.
Well, they have no facts. It's all about an agenda. It's all about the knee-jerk reaction, push the emotions, and then the kids manipulate the kids. And then you had a couple of those two turds who showed up on Bill Maher's Real Time, who basically are now making it all about them and not really about the shooting anymore. It's all about them.
And the good part about that is they're being paid big fat money to be on those shows.
I'm sure. So, yeah.
When was school safety ever talked about after any school shooting in the past?
Never.
And the father of one of the daughters, one of the girls that died.
He was good, yeah. And of course, everybody's trying to shame him, but he was dead on.
Well, let's just use logic. 9/11 happened. How do we defend our airports? How do we defend our banks? How do we defend corporate buildings in New York City where there's a gun?
Well, the Academy Awards the other night, they were all bitching about gun control. But when you pan the red carpet, there was LAPD SWAT. There was private bodyguards.
And they have bodyguards, and they're all armed. And they're a bunch of flaming hypocrites.
Oh, yeah.
I know a guy whose team member, he was a sniper for the Army, was at consulting the Oscars. And he literally got spit on working that venue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sad.
Sad, very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just, again, it just cracks me up because the most hypocritical views and speech you hear coming, like Maxine Waters, who's basically brain dead, yet still manages to talk and breathe, which I can't understand.
Or future Speaker Pelosi.
Yeah, I mean, and they live in gated communities. They are so far removed from reality, yet continue to push an agenda that has no effect on them. They don't care. And the Hollywood celebrities, they continue to run their mouths, and you just shake your head and go, huh? What?
Yeah. We're literally in the throes of a cultural civil war.
Yeah, well, it's sadly to say it's heading that way. And when you see the polarization, it's scary.
A lot of that polarization, I chalk up to the social media thing. I mean, have you ever seen a polarized opinion becomes fact? All of a sudden, the hell with the truth, the hell with what's real. It's what's right in these people's mind, and this polarized idea that they throw out there. And by God, it's fuck you if you have the facts and you have the truth.
Well, the thing that was really hilarious
the truth.
Was watching the total, and I did, full disclosure, I did not vote for Trump. I like some of the stuff he's doing. I don't think he's a true conservative. But watching the liberal meltdown when he got elected was probably one of the best entertaining things in years to watch.
That's great.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Awesome.
The denial, the whining, the bitching. Quite frankly, you know what? You ran one of the most corrupt people in the history of politics against him. And, I'm like, come on, really?
And she's running again.
And, yeah, probably.
What? Mayor of New York?
No, yeah, she's mayor of Shittown. That's about it for her.
Mayor, governor, what does she do in New York?
I have no idea. Notice it's kind of odd lately with all this crap happening. Where's Obama? Where are all these people now?
Well, Obama actually has been trying to reinsert himself into the political spectrum.
I haven't seen much from him at all.
Let me read you this gem.
Yeah, he just made comments about school shootings, which is hilarious because his stats were way off.
He also said we didn't have a scandal that embarrassed us.
Ha!
in a closed door conference that someone filmed.
Right, which of course his 8 years were racked with scandal. Tons of scandals, but of course, again, Obama, so the media ignored most of them. And, I mean, just speaking on Benghazi alone, I could absolutely rip them to shreds on that one over so many different parts of it.
Oh, yeah.
It was disgraceful.
Fast and Furious, that wasn't a scandal?
Yeah. I mean, well, two of the most embarrassing speeches in presidential history took place when Obama addressed the National Prayer Breakfast and went on his get off your high horse crusade rant when, you know what? Why were the Crusades formed? Oh, yeah, the Muslim invasion of the Holy Land. And then the Dallas police shooting memorial where he launched into a 20 or 30 minute, I mean, it was embarrassing. And if you watch the police behind him, they were awkward. They wouldn't get up. They wouldn't clap. He brings up a pedophile felony who was killed.
You got to remember that they were pandering to that Black
unbelievable. Of course. I mean, it was
and
disgraceful.
Lest we forget the great airborne man named Bo Bergdahl. Well, that's not a controversy.
What about the I'm finally proud of America now that you elected my husband.
Oh yeah, Michelle Obama, another
dipshit.
What about the they cling to their guns, they cling to their religion.
Yeah.
But
an interesting point.
What about the moose knuckles she was sporting, man? That's a big controversy right there.
One of the things that cracks me up, because they always try and vilify the NRA, and I am a member of the NRA. I'm a member of the Illinois State Rifle Association. I'm a member of the United States Practical Shooting Association, and I joined the Aurora Sportsman's Club, which has a ton of ranges, to include a 600-yard
That's a good range
where I can shoot my sniper rifles. You know what? If you look at every single mass shooter that has happened, not one of them have been an NRA member.
Nope.
If you want to vilify the NRA, you talk about they own the Republican Party. Well, you know what? They only contributed $4 million to campaigns. And if you look on the super PAC list, they're not even in the top 50. Why do conservatives respect the NRA? Because the NRA are voters. They are people who respect the Constitution, and they support. It's a grassroots organization that supports the Second Amendment, supports responsible firearm owners. And what most of these dumbasses don't even realize, they're one of the major contributors to the CDC's suicide prevention studies.
You mean the same stuff that the Democrats were fighting the NRA to get the next check improved?
Of course.
But, I mean, the other thing with the NRA is they've been fighting for most of these policies for years. 10, 15
Weren't they the ones who were in favor of the comprehensive background checks and fought to get them the way they are now? Which, how are you going to even better these? They're talking about, well, we need to do a better job at comprehensive background check.
Well, the problem with background checks is, and this is one of those things. It's another liberal bugaboo.
Well, the red flag
universal background checks. Okay, the FBI has already stated there is no way that the federal government can support universal background checks in all states. They can't do it. What would be better is if each state individually had a background check like we have in Illinois.
Texas
when I got a FOID, I had to punch in my stuff. And then when I got a concealed carry permit, I had to go through classes. I had to submit fingerprints, and I had to go through the whole rigmarole. But you know what? I legally can carry concealed. And we're going to talk about personal security and security issues here real quick after I get done with this. I am not a fan of constitutional carry. I think that anybody who gets a concealed carry permit should have to at least go through some kind of background check and training. And for those, I'm probably preaching to the choir. You guys have been at ranges. I've been at ranges. I've seen people out there who go to ranges, and I look at them and they can't hit the broadside of a barn or a bull in the ass with a bass fiddle. I mean, you know what I mean?
I've actually worked, I used to work for a group here out of NPSI, and we did a lot of training of handguns. And we had a 20-year veteran of the San Antonio Police Department on our range, I shit you not, running a Beretta 92F, who had worked the decocker with both hands. Oh, geez. And next thing we know, he reaches over, and I tell him, I said, you need to work that with your thumb only. He literally goes from here and says, what's that? And we took the gun away from a police officer in San Antonio and handed it over to the owner of the range and had Bexar County sheriffs come out and get it.
Well, then this is what I'm talking about. I mean, one of my biggest gripes with gun owners, and I'm not, is people who are untrained, who they just say, oh, I need a gun, and they're not helping the cause. Now, when they talk about arming teachers,
I don't agree with arming.
I don't either, unless that particular teacher is well-trained and wants to be armed and is not somebody who in a classroom, probably not the right place. And I'll talk about a specific incident. When I was at Fort Bragg, in a local high school, 71st High School in Fayetteville, had a problem, and I'm talking back in the 80s now. They had literally, in a 1-month period, 3 stabbings in the school. They had drug trafficking problems. Now, what they did is they shut down all the access points to the school to 4. 2 in the back, 2 in the rear. Put alarms on all the doors. They had security personnel run metal detectors at all 4 of those access points. They gave every single teacher, coach, administrator a radio, a 2-channel radio, 1 channel local. The second channel would be tuned into the police department. And within 1 month, boom, problem solved. Everything disappeared. They had no problems in school anymore.
Yep.
And that's the kind of approach you need.
They use concentric ring theory, basically.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. And I've said that for the schools here. I've even, drew up a little design and been talking to people about it. If you really want school security, you have to have, number 1, intel from your neighborhood, from all this other stuff. Number 2, you have to have a first layer of guards at each entrance to the campus, not the building. Then inside of that second ring, you have to have roving patrols, 1 or 2 guys, 3, 4 guys. And then inside of that, now each entrance to that school, you have to have 2 more guards minimum armed. If you have that concentric rings theory working for you like that, you wouldn't need to arm anybody. And my proof that it works is look at Israel. They use it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Israel's a model because they're surrounded by enemies. And I've been to Israel, and I've seen their securities. I mean, they had a kindergarten that got attacked by terrorists. And this is when I went over to Israel in the 80s, worked with the Golani Brigade, and they were able to resolve the situation. But in one of their kibbutzes, they had a terrorist attack on a kindergarten, for crying out loud. Now, they were able to resolve the situation, but after that point, they changed their security posture in schools all the way down to the K level, all the way up to the high school level. And if you go to Jerusalem, you're going to see people walking around with weapons for an obvious reason. Absolutely. Men and women.
I don't like the Israel comparison because, to be fair,
well, no, but I'm just making a point about.
I mean, every citizen in Israel knows how to operate a fully automatic military.
Absolutely, because they have a full-scale draft in that country, women and men.
2 years military service.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's kind of an unfair comparison because with our freedoms here, we'll never have a man.
Oh, no. I'm just saying.
It may be unfair in that regard, but if you take that theory of the concentric rings, there's a lot of people who run guns here that can do this type of work.
And actually, let's face it, if the police agencies and the FBI had done their job in Florida, that shooting would not have happened.
Yeah.
You're talking about a guy who had so many red flags come up. I mean, it was nuts.
Yeah.
But then you look at the legal and the politics involved in it, boom.
I mean, even take the red flags away, and it was just a student, and he wasn't caught. The schools are vulnerable, and, you know, the modern day huddle in a corner lockdown drill is you know what I compare it to is like the nuclear bomb drills where you hide under your desk,
which I went through in the 70s.
Stop, drop, and roll.
I literally grew up in that in the 60s and 70s. That's what we did. We had air raid drills.
It's the same thing. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, he had 14 kids dead. If he would have just went into one classroom, it's fish in a barrel, and it's more than that.
Well, in my daughter's school right up the road here, their policy, from who I've talked to, they put all the kids into the cafeteria, and the cafeteria has a door here, and no back door. And you're putting them all in a kill box.
Yep.
Every one of them.
See, and that's the thing is people don't understand kill boxes. They don't understand firearms tactics.
Nope.
Let alone the firearm themselves.
Yeah.
So you have these teachers and administrators saying, let's just hide.
And not to mention, the majority of the schools in this country are placated with what? Liberalism, leftism.
Yeah.
You see it in the curriculum that the kids bring home from school.
Besides the security at the entrances, see, I don't agree with arming teachers because I've known some teachers that would have been great with firearms, and I know some teachers that I won't.
Absolutely. I would not. So, like I said, I would not put a gun in the hand of a teacher who was untrained or wouldn't even want to have a handgun. I mean, that's insane.
And even if you did train them, let's just say you did train them, you gave them a course. That's where a majority of it's going to end. Is going to be a course.
Exactly. And most of them will never ever do anything further. And again, I think we all pretty much agree that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I would rather see trained security personnel or police in a school environment.
You know, and the thing is, if you don't make this a part of your life, training, and I'm talking across the board, you as a wrestler, Michael, you know as well as I do.
Yeah.
If it's not a part of your life, you're not going to be as good as you are.
Nope.
And I'm 54. I train every day.
When I was shooting casually, you know, a couple times a month, going out with family or something, versus shooting, you know, a couple times a week or even more so. I mean, there were strings of time where I'm shooting every day. It's drastically different, and it's the same with anything. It's a skill set.
Yep.
And what people don't look at is shooting is a skill set.
Yes.
And whether it's close quarters combat or the snipers or, you know, the door kickers that are in, you know, Afghanistan, it's all a different skill. And just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at another.
Yeah.
And, you know, these people don't, I mean, it goes back to they don't have a basic understanding of firearms, let alone tactics and skill sets.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I really believe that gun-free zones are wrong.
Absolutely.
And if you're a parent and you have a permit to carry, you're one of the most vetted people that school could let in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And so I believe, you know, the Aurora shooting, people don't talk about the movie theater shooting. He drove further to go to a gun-free zone, to go to a gun-free theater.
Here in Sutherland Springs, Texas, the same thing. You know, it's right down the road from me here. And they want to vilify the NRA member who stopped it with an AR-15.
Is that the church guy?
Yeah, that's 30 minutes south of me.
Yeah, that guy's a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, in Oswego, we had the shooting here, and that idiot Darlene Glanton was saying, oh, well, he shouldn't have acted as a cop. He should have called 911. Well, hello, 10 to 12-minute response time. the guy would have knifed the other guy and probably killed him by that time. So no, shut up.
A couple days after the Florida shooting, I saw a high school kid in Maryland got arrested with an M4, a military automatic M4, C4, claymores, and military detonators. And they're an assault weapons ban state, and a high school kid is getting military-grade explosives and detonators.
Yeah. I have a buddy of mine who's a SAPD sergeant down here, and we talked about this, and he told me, he said, Mike, don't worry about me. He said, you do what you have to do. He said, you call me when it's done, because I'm not going to be there in time. And I agreed. I said, yeah. I said, I'll call you when it's over. I'm not going to call you beforehand.
See, and I've had multiple people that were ex-military and now cops, or even just cops that it's their life and it's their duty to serve, say the same thing. And if you're in the right, we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And, the problem is not all police are like that.
No.
Nope.
You've got anti-gun street cops that are looking to hang you.
Yep.
If you do something.
I've heard of an old guy by the name of Jeff Hall. Or Emerson, you probably heard of Jeff.
Yep.
He was the guy who shot the Marine with the hunting rifle in Alaska from the chopper.
Yep.
Yeah, Jeff is a good friend of mine. I've trained with him a few times. He's really good for him. I believe Vietnam era Ranger, retired SWAT cop with the Alaska State Patrol. And we talked one time, and he made a poignant fact. He told me, he said, Mike, when I was coming up through the ranks as a police officer, he said it was a fraternity. We ate together. We drank together. Our families were always together. We trained together. We trained off hours. We were together. We were a cohesive unit. He said, we lived the life of a law enforcement agent. He said, what I see now is, he said, I see guys who need a job and who need insurance and who need a pension.
Yep.
No longer do I see a guy who's a hard charger. I just see guys who are looking for a job. And if that's your mindset as a cop, and let's be honest, a lot of the younger people today becoming police officers are that. And then when you take that and you take their training and you put it to budget limitations, like in San Antonio, cops are trained here by the budget. What can we afford to do? I went to the police department years ago to the training out here to the facility and offered my training to these people. And I was told by the commander out there that it was too archaic and that they could handle themselves with the, I believe it was the 8 hours of boxing and 6 hours of Hapkido that they get.
Well, I'll say this. I have made a standing offer to Forest Park, River Forest, and Oak Park Police Department at any time for free to come out to the range, and I would be more than happy to train them on handgun, shotgun, and semi-automatic rifle. All they got to do is bring their bodies, body armor, their rifles or ammo, whatever they want to shoot, and I have yet to have a single taker.
And with somebody of your caliber and your background makes that offer, me personally, hell, I'm going to be coming up to see you.
Just to learn.
Well, but this is the thing, guys are saying, well, it's my weekend and and the sad fact is, and I'll even go to another point here. Back, when I was in school, I'm 61 years old now, and of course, Mike, you're 54. When I grew up in the 60s and 70s, you had high schools and colleges that taught marksmanship and archery. They had guns on campus, and we never had this problem. Never. We had people who drove to school with rifles and rifle racks in their pickup trucks. We never had this problem. And getting to the larger, more salient point on this is what we're seeing is a degradation of society. We've seen, I don't know, progressive liberalism, whatever you want to call it, something that has created a foundation for this kind of insanity to exist. And that's the scariest part. That's the biggest problem that we have to solve right now. Because it's not responsible gun owners. It's not the Second Amendment. It's people running out there who dissent against anything, who don't want to hear a dissenting opinion. It's the whack jobs running out there. It's a lack of law enforcement actually doing law enforcement. You look at the Orlando shooter. You look at Florida. I mean, San Bernardino, another situation.
You got to remember that these police are so scared right now of pulling the trigger.
Yeah. Everybody's got the greatest weapon in the world, a cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
These police are so afraid, even the good ones, that if they go in, what happens if they shot this kid and the bullets went through him and hit a minority student? What would happen outside that community?
Yep. Oh, God forbid. Well, we've even had, you look at some of the incidents that we've had where, a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri, shoots a thug who's assaulting him and is vilified, riots occur, and then, of course, even though he's, completely exonerated, they still file a civil lawsuit and get a wrongful death judgment and a couple of $1 million on top of it.
Last thing before I got to go.
Yep.
It all comes back to the Democratic Party and liberal progressives' main point is that they thrive off of government dependence.
Oh, absolutely.
Chaos and social problems. And if they can rally people that Republicans are taking away your women's health rights, or Republicans are killing kids, or Republicans want to send you nutritional food so you can't buy cash back and cigarettes with your EBT, health benefits card, and all this stuff, it's always they're taking from you. You're entitled to it. They're killing people. The message is always riling up and causing chaos.
Yep.
Cops are racist and killing people. The whole Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot was a farce. They still use.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, and it's still one of the biggest farces perpetuated.
When there's burn marks on your hoodie from the muzzle flash,
yeah, there you go.
There's contusions on the back of your skull from getting your head bashed against the pavement.
Yeah, like with Trayvon Martin. Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't this all kind of, if you know your history, doesn't this all kind of ring true of 1929 Berlin, KDP, the same type of stuff? That's where it all started there, and that's where it's all starting here. It's just our turn in the barrel, I guess.
It's vilifying. It's vilifying the other side.
Yep.
Saying they're taking away everything you're entitled to, and not only just what you're entitled to, but promising you more if you fight them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and why do you have so many Bernie Sanders supporters?
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that everything's free, but you know what? It ain't. And you go over to some of those countries that have or supposedly have this and that for free. Well, you know what? It ain't free. You pay it in taxes. And a lot of them, like in Canada, they say free health care, but most of these people still have to purchase supplemental health insurance because it won't cover any of the procedure, the more.
Yeah. Did you see the Swedish Prime Minister's press conference with Trump when he was asked about because they were talking about our economy doing better and people having more cash on hand. When he was asked about how much cash on hand his citizens have with all their taxes and social programs, and his only response was, we're doing great things with our programs and the welfare, the welfare that we provide for everyone.
Yep.
Not the fact that most people in Sweden can't even afford a car payment.
Exactly. And, when you talk about it, like you were saying, the socialized medicine type of thing, I mean, just in my family alone, I had a dear aunt who passed away of cancer in Germany. And socialized medicine, everything was free. But before she could get to see the doctors that she needed to see, it was too late.
Ask about Canada's wait times and the quality of doctors.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
This has been great. I got to get going. Thank you both for your service.
Oh,
yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you, Michael.
Mike.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. This has been great.
Yep. Hey, good luck, buddy. And if you ever make it here in Illinois, we're going to the range.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Have a good night.
Take care.
All righty.
Thank you. Bye.
Emerson, I believe that's our cue.
Well, there's actually one thing I want to talk about real quick before we go. And then this is something kind of more specific to you and I, and talk about personal security, because a lot of people, this is one of those things that a lot of people totally fail on.
Yeah.
And it's the simple things that you can do to ensure your safety. And you know, we can talk training, like you and I both have done martial arts training. And I would recommend anybody out there, you know what? If you want to feel safe, that's a good basis. Start there.
Yep.
If you want to own a firearm, but go and train on it. And we talk about training because training allows you to either avoid situations, recognize situations, and deal with situations.
Exactly. And the thing is, like I said earlier, you're never going to get good at this by doing a class.
Nope.
It's just not going to happen. For me, it's a way of life, and it's been for 38 years plus. And I tell people all the time, if you want to get good, if you want to get lethal, you have to dedicate yourself across the board, boots to blade, gun to ground. And you have to treat it all as simple motion and tools. Understand that, and understand that the way you run your hands is the way you can run a blade, is the way you can run your pistol. Body mechanics are body mechanics. You need to find people that are of like mind to help you and to train you. And I know a lot of people are down on training with military guys, and I always tell people, who better to teach you how to help you build the mindset that you need than somebody like yourself, you know?
And I'm going to be doing a video on this in the near future.
Yeah.
And there's just so many common sense things and simple things that people can do to protect themselves, to be able to, you know, and even if you don't want to engage, at least to be able to recognize a situation and bail, or, you know, whatever you have to do. I live in a suburb near Chicago.
Yeah.
And within the last year or so, we saw a 30% increase in crime, and most of it was due to carjackings.
Yeah.
And even one of the latest ones, and in a neighborhood that's not far from where I live, a guy pulled into his driveway, lights on, whatever, started to get out of his car, and somebody just happened to be cruising by, pulled in behind him. Two guys ran up and jacked him right in his own driveway in front of his house.
Amazing.
He didn't even see it coming, and boom, was there. They pulled a gun on him, took his car, took his keys, bang, drove away.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's happening more and more.
And if you don't want to be a victim, then learn how to not be a victim. Learn how to be safe. And if you don't want to carry a firearm, there's other things you can do. But, you know, for God's sakes, you know, learn, be smart, be aware. You know, I carry a firearm and I can carry a knife. And I've been trained in a Philippine system of knife fighting, STAR system. If you don't know what it is, by all means, go ahead and look up. I know you know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Look it up online. If you don't know how to shoot a firearm, if you buy a firearm, by God, learn how to shoot it properly. And especially if you're going to get a concealed carry permit, learn how to shoot, learn how to draw, learn how to
learn what to carry
at a target.
It safely. I see so many people carrying a Glock 43 and some stupid little pancake holster that's made of like your sister's panties.
Yeah, which is useless, you know. And I could talk. Like I said, I'm going to do a volume of this. I could talk long and hard about holsters. You know, I carried concealed doing personal security details for years in the military. And I could talk about all the growing pains and learning. And I wore a shoulder holster, which was a pain in the ass because I'm 5'7", and imagine a shoulder holster with a full size 911 on a guy my size, and having to make a draw from that thing. And in the civilian world, I would tell people right off, do not buy or use a shoulder holster, because you cannot draw without masking half of the people before you even get on target.
Exactly. That's
I
true.
mean, I could talk about holster composition and why I don't like waistband holsters, and I go on and on and on about this.
Yeah.
But the main point on this is, one, we have the Second Amendment for a reason. Two, if you're buying into all the nonsense that you hear being spewed out here about firearm ownership, about AR-15s, et cetera, educate yourself, because the bottom line is it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. And when you know the facts, you'll know it's bullshit.
Yep.
And don't fall into the lie. Don't be a sheeple. Be a person with your own mind. And that's the best thing you can do.
I agree 100%.
Really yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know we're both in agreement. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but for the people who watch this, it's not rocket science. And if you've never been around a firearm, get educated. Don't automatically hate something because you don't like it, you don't own it, or you've been listening to all the bullshit surrounding it. Get educated. Talk to somebody who does know. And for God's sakes, if you are going to own a weapon, a firearm, if you are going to, or a knife, get trained on it. Don't be an idiot.
That's one of the worst things that ever happened is when people started getting the CHL protection permit where they could carry concealed. Most people's training began and started the day they finished that test, because now they believe for some odd reason, they believe they are ready for a gunfight because they're allowed to carry. I believe it was Colonel Cooper who best said, just because you carry a handgun does not mean that you are armed.
That's true. Jeff Cooper was one of the pioneers, probably one of the first people who taught realistic training and practical shooting back in the day.
Exactly.
I mean, he was one of the best. And I would say that again today. Seek out people who know and learn, because in the end, you're going to benefit from it and not make a mistake. And the second thing I would say is know the law.
Yeah. If
you're going to carry concealed, if you're going to own a firearm, know the law. Because, for instance, here in Illinois, there's one thing, if you're in a convenience store, a guy comes in, pulls a gun, threatens the cashier or you, and you draw and shoot him, okay, you're fine. On the other hand, if the guy draws a gun, sees you draw a gun, and runs, and you run out of that convenience store and shoot at him out in the street, guess what? You're going to get arrested. You're going to get charged. So you got to know the law.
Yeah, I concur with that. And another thing I would add to that is make sure you have a very good lawyer on retainer.
Amen. Yeah, well, we all know that, and even concerning the Florida mass shooting, it's never over until the lawsuits are settled.
But what's the hard? What do they usually say? What's the hardest fight? It's not the gunfight; it's the fight for your life after the fact.
Yep. Amen. And there's a reason why, if you open up a phone book, that one of the largest sections is attorneys.
Yeah, exactly. 1-800
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, and I'm going to say thank you so much, Mike. We'll probably be on in the future too.
Oh, definitely.
And everybody, this is first in this particular series that I'm starting up. Wrestling season's over, so I'm going to be doing a few of these, and I'm going to be tackling some other topics like immigration, etc. So please, any comments are appreciated. Anything you would like to see in the future, by all means, let me know. And with that, I'm going to say good night. And again, Mike, thank you. Sorry, Court couldn't make it tonight, so we'll have to get him on another time.
I'll be heading up to Indiana, so on my way up to Indiana,
look me up.
See you.
When you get in town, you're always welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody. Mike.
Good night. Take care, y'all.
God bless.